I will never forget the look my father gave me on Thanksgiving last year. It was a mixture of pity and deep, undisguised disgust. We were sitting at a huge mahogany table at my parents' house, and my older brother, Greg, had just finished telling another story about his promotion at the investment bank. Everyone applauded, Mum beamed, and then there was silence, and all eyes turned to me. In their eyes, I was a complete failure, a black sheep, a man who, at 32, still drove a rusty 2005 pickup truck, wore work boots stained with lime, and in their opinion, barely made ends meet working as a handyman on construction sites. They had no idea how wrong they were. The irony was that it was their arrogance and blindness that allowed me to build an empire right under their noses, completely unnoticed. I, Jake, whom they considered a disgrace to the family, had long since ceased to be just a hired hand. 10 years ago, I started with small repairs, but instead of spending money on designer clothes and leasing expensive cars as Greg did, I invested every penny. First, I bought an abandoned flat, renovated it myself and sold it. Then a duplex, then a small apartment building. Today, I own a holding company that manages luxury real estate in 3 states. My fortune is 5 times greater than that of my parents and Greg combined. But I never told them about it. Why? So they would start asking for money? Or so they would suddenly start respecting me just because of my bank balance? No, I preferred silence. But 3 months ago, my brother made a mistake that set off a chain of events leading to the most scandalous incident in our family's history. And it all started with a move. Greg called me in early May. Not to ask how I was doing, of course. He wanted to brag. He told me he had finally rented his dream penthouse in a new residential complex in the city center. He described the panoramic windows, the marble floors in the lobby, the concierge service, and the private rooftop pool. He spoke with such enthusiasm, as if he had built the place himself. "You'd love it there, Jake," he said with that same condescending tone. "Maybe someday I'll invite you over, if you can find some clean clothes to pass the face control." I could barely contain my laughter. The fact is, this company is the jewel in my real estate portfolio. I bought the property at the foundation stage 3 years ago through a complex network of limited companies so that my name would not appear anywhere in public records. I personally approved the lobby design. I chose the very marble he admired so much. Legally, the building belongs to a single company, and no one except my solicitor and chief accountant knows that I am behind the company name. When Greg applied to rent, my management company conducted a standard check. He had a good credit rating, a high salary, and my managers approved him. I only found out about it when I saw a familiar surname in the weekly report of new tenants. At first, I wanted to refuse, just on principle. But then I thought, why not? Let him pay me rent. It seemed like a funny twist of fate. My brother, who thinks I'm a bum, was transferring $4,500 to me every month, thinking he was paying some faceless corporation. I decided not to interfere. I let him move in, and that was my first step into the trap he had begun to dig for himself. The first month passed quietly. Greg posted photos from the flat on social media, tagging the location and captioning the pictures with phrases like "life is good" and "new level." His parents were delighted. At family dinners, they talked about how successful Greg was, and hinted again that it was time for me to find a normal job instead of digging in the dirt. I just nodded and ate my steak, knowing that this steak was paid for by Greg's rent. But soon the problems began. I received reports of all incidents in my buildings, and my brother's name began to appear in them. With alarming frequency, at first they were minor complaints. He yelled at the valet for not bringing his car quickly enough. Then he made a scene at the front desk because the food delivery guy was 5 minutes late, and Greg demanded that the concierge punish the delivery guy. My building manager, Mr. Thompson, a man with nerves of steel, called me personally. He didn't know that Greg was my brother. He just knew that I was the owner. He said that the tenant of Penthouse 12B was behaving provocatively and violating the quiet hours policy by throwing parties on weekdays. I told Thompson to issue a formal warning, I wanted to follow the law as I would with any other tenant. Greg, of course, ignored the warning. He thought he was king of the world. At the next family dinner, he laughed as he recounted how he had put the building management in their place. He bragged to his parents that he had threatened the manager with his connections and that the manager had immediately shut up. "These people only understand power," Greg said, looking at me. "In this world, you're either a predator or prey, Jake. You don't understand that." Oh, how I wanted to take out my phone at that moment and show him who the real predator in this food chain was. But I waited. I knew he would go too far, and he did. The situation reached a boiling point 2 weeks ago. The company had a problem with the air conditioning system in the penthouses. It was a complex breakdown, and my team of engineers couldn't quickly find the cause. With my extensive experience in construction and engineering, I decided to go there myself. I often do this. I put on old work clothes, a cap, grab a toolbox, and personally inspect my properties. This helps me see the real state of affairs, bypassing managers' reports. None of the residents know me by sight. To them, I'm just another technician. I was on the roof checking the chillers, and then I went down to the technical floor, which borders the entrance to the penthouses. I was covered in dust, wearing an old t-shirt and worn jeans. And then the lift opened. Greg came out with his fiancée, Sarah. The next morning, I was sitting in my main office, reviewing documents, when I received a call from an agitated Mr. Thompson. "Sir, we have a serious incident with the tenant in 12B, he said in a trembling voice. He has filed a formal complaint against one of the maintenance staff. He claims that the worker threatened him with physical violence and tried to steal an expensive watch he had left in the hallway." I felt a chill run down my spine. Greg didn't just want to humiliate me. He had decided to destroy my work. He thought I was just a regular employee of a contractor and decided to get me fired for fun. He made up a story about theft and threats. This was no longer just snobbery. It was a criminal charge. It could ruin the life of any real hard worker. "What is he demanding?" I asked, trying to keep my voice steady. Thompson replied, "He is demanding the immediate dismissal of this employee, an official apology from the company, and financial compensation for moral damages to the lease. He is also threatening to sue the management company if we don't take action today." I asked Thompson to send me a copy of the complaint. Reading the document, I was amazed at my brother's imagination. He described an aggressive technician with shifty eyes who allegedly waved a wrench around. It was a lie from start to finish. But most importantly, Greg didn't know that the company's corridors were equipped with the latest generation of CCTV cameras with audio recording. I personally insisted on their installation 6 months ago. I opened the archive of recordings on my laptop. I found yesterday's recording. The time was 6:45 p.m. Here I am standing by the panel. Here comes Greg. Here he is being rude to me. Here he is pushing me with his shoulder. No threats from me. No watch. Just his arrogance and my calm reaction. I had proof not of my innocence but also of his slander. Instead of just calling Greg and exposing him on the phone, I decided to stage a show trial. If he wanted a show, he would get one. I called Thompson and gave him clear instructions. "Contact Mr. Gregory. Tell him that the company's management takes his complaint very seriously. Inform him that we have scheduled a disciplinary hearing for tomorrow at 2 p.m. in the main conference room of the building. Tell him that the offending employee will be present to receive his punishment, and add that he may invite witnesses or representatives if he wishes, to record our response." I knew Greg. He wouldn't miss the opportunity to see me fall. And I knew who he would call. His parents. He would want to show them how cool he was, how he was defending the family honor from his inadequate loser brother. An hour later, Thompson called back. He agreed, sir. He was very pleased. The day of the trial had arrived. I arrived at the company an hour before the meeting, but entered through the service entrance so that no one would see me. I went up to my private office, which is adjacent to the main conference room. This room has a glass wall tinted so that I can see the hall, but no one can see me. I changed my clothes. I took off my usual jeans and t-shirt. For this occasion, I had a custom-made Italian suit in dark blue, a white shirt and a silk tie hanging in my wardrobe. I put on an expensive watch that I usually keep in a safe. I didn't look like a handyman. I looked like the man who owned this neighborhood. At exactly 1:55 p.m., my family entered the conference room. Greg walked ahead, important as a peacock. Sarah scurried along beside him with a notebook. My parents followed behind. My father looked stern. My mother nervously adjusted her pearl necklace. With them was a guy in a cheap suit, apparently Greg's friend, pretending to be a lawyer. They sat down at a long conference table. Mr. Thompson sat at the head of the table, pale and tense. He knew what was about to happen, and he was clearly uncomfortable. "Well, where is he?" Greg asked loudly, drumming his fingers on the table. "Where is this psychopath? I hope you've called the police. I don't want to be in the same room with him without handcuffs." "Patience, Mr. Gregory," Thompson replied quietly. "The owner of the building is on his way to deal with the situation personally." "The owner?" my father asked in surprise. "Wow, Greg, you've made it all the way to the top. Well done. Let them know who they're dealing with." "Exactly, Dad. They need to understand that customers like me should be valued," Greg said smugly. I stood behind the glass and watched them. There was not a shadow of doubt on their faces. They were confident in their righteousness, in their power. They were preparing to crush me. It was time to leave. I took a deep breath, picked up the folder with the documents and pressed the button to open the automatic doors. The doors slid open silently. I entered the hall with a confident stride, looking straight ahead. The sound of my expensive shoes echoed in the silence of the room. At first, they didn't even realize. They saw the expensive suit, the confident posture, the authoritative look. Mom even started to smile, thinking that some important director was coming in. But when I got closer and the light fell on my face, their smiles froze. Greg's eyes widened to the size of saucers. Dad's mouth fell open. "Jake," Mom managed to say. It sounded less like a question and more like a groan. "Good afternoon," I said in a calm, cold tone they had never heard from me before. I didn't look at them as a son or brother. I looked at them as a businessman would look at problematic clients. I walked to the head of the table. "Mr. Thompson" immediately jumped up and gave me his seat. "Thank you, Mr. Thompson," I nodded to him. "You're free to go. I'll take it from here." Thompson quickly left, leaving us alone. A dead silence hung in the air. Greg grabbed the papers with trembling hands. He read, and with every second the color drained from his face. He turned pale as a sheet. He handed the documents to his father. The only sounds in the room were the rustling of paper and my family's heavy breathing. This is impossible," my mother whispered. "Where did this come from? How?" "It doesn't matter," I snapped. "We're not here to discuss my finances. We're here to discuss the incident that occurred yesterday at 6:45 p.m. I took out the remote and turned on the huge screen on the wall. "Mr. Gregory," I addressed my brother formally. "In your complaint, you stated that an employee attacked you and tried to take your watch. That's a serious accusation. It's a criminal offense. Fortunately for all of us, our company is equipped with a comprehensive video surveillance system. Let's take a look." I pressed play. The video appeared on the huge 4K screen. The sound was crystal clear. Everyone saw me working calmly. They saw Greg come out. They saw him start to insult me. "Dirty loser. Disgrace." His words rang out in the conference room. Everyone saw him push me, and how I just stood there, not making a single threatening move. The video ended. The screen went dark. I looked at my brother. He was slumped in his chair. His lawyer looked away sheepishly and began to gather his things. This is edited," Greg squeaked pitifully. "This is the original recording, which has already been sent to the legal department's servers," I said harshly. "You lied, Greg. You tried to destroy a man's life by fabricating a criminal charge. You violated Clause 14.3 of your lease agreement, malicious acts against staff or other residents, and also the clause on defamation." "Jake, son," his father intervened, his tone changing abruptly from aggressive to ingratiating. "Come on, why so formal? It's just a family misunderstanding. Greg got carried away. Let's just forget about it." We're family. You're not going to— Family? I interrupted him. When you thought I was a poor laborer, you were ready to tear me to pieces. You came here to watch me get fired. And now that you know I have money and power, I'm suddenly your son? No, that's not going to work. I took the next document out of the folder. It was a notice of termination of the lease agreement. In business, I make no exceptions for liars and manipulators, I said, pushing the paper towards Greg. Your lease is terminated. You have 72 hours to vacate the premises. This is standard procedure for security breaches and aggressive behavior towards staff. You can't do that, screamed Sarah, Greg's fiancée. We just finished decorating the nursery. We were planning our wedding. Where are we supposed to go? That's not my problem, I replied coldly. You should have thought about that before you decided to slander an employee. Greg started crying. Seriously, a 35-year-old man, a successful banker, was sitting there whimpering. Jake, please, I have nowhere to go right now. The rental market is overheated. My credit history will be ruined because of the eviction. It will destroy my reputation at the bank if they find out. What about my reputation? I asked quietly. Did you think about my reputation when you wrote that I was a thief? You wanted me thrown out on the street without references. You wanted to destroy me for fun. You're getting exactly what you had in store for me. That's justice. Mum jumped up from her chair. You're a monster. How can you do this to your brother? You have so much money. You own this building, and you're kicking your own brother out onto the street. You should let him live here for free after hiding the truth from us for so many years. You deceived us. I don't owe you anything, I replied, standing up. I hid the truth because I knew that you didn't love me. You loved money. And today you proved it. This conversation is over. Security will show you out. I pressed the selector button. 2 burly security guards entered the room. Escort these citizens to the exit. Give Mr. Gregory access to the flat, only to collect his belongings under supervision. I left the room without turning back to their shouts and curses. I felt the weight I had been carrying all my life lift from my shoulders. A week passed. Greg moved out. He tried to resist, threatened legal action, but his solicitor, the real one, not that clown, explained to him that with the video recording of the slander, he didn't stand a chance, and if I filed a counterclaim for defamation, he would lose much more than the flat. He moved into some cheap motel on the outskirts while he looks for a new place to live. Rumors of the scandal reached his workplace, not from me, walls have ears, and his reputation as a golden boy suffered greatly. My phone was ringing off the hook with calls from my parents for the first 3 days. First threats, then pleas, then attempts to manipulate my guilt. We're old, family is the most important thing. Give us money for a new house. I blocked them everywhere. I realized that they would never change. If I forgave them now, they would just take advantage of me and continue to despise me behind my back, using my resources. My father tried to come to my office, but security wouldn't let him in. He stood at the entrance and shouted that I was an ungrateful son. It was painful to see, but even more painful to realize that all these years I had been trying to earn the love of people who are only capable of loving status. Now I know that blood ties do not give anyone the right to humiliate you. I continue to work. I still sometimes put on my work clothes and check my properties because I love what I do. But now, when I walk past the mirrors in the company lobby, I don't see a black sheep, but a person who made himself and managed to protect his dignity. The situation taught me the most important thing. Money does not change people, it just removes their masks. My brother was a rotten person when he was poor and when he was rich, as he thought. I remained myself, regardless of the zeros in my bank account. Now there are new tenants living in Penthouse 12B, a lovely elderly couple who always greet the staff and treat the concierge to biscuits. Every time I see their surname on the report, I smile. The atmosphere in my building has become healthy again. As for my family, I've heard from mutual acquaintances that they tell everyone what a fraud and thief I am, that I cheated my way into an inheritance which didn't exist and kicked them out onto the street. Let them talk. The truth is on my side, and the video recording is safely stored in the cloud in case they decide to take action. I chose freedom from toxicity, and that is probably my most valuable investment. Guys, be honest, did I go too far? Should I have given my brother a second chance just because we share the same DNA? Or am I right to have taught him a lesson he'll never forget? Write your opinion in the comments. I'm really interested to read how you would have acted in my place. And if you like this story about instant karma, subscribe to the channel and click on the bell. See you soon.